It's a beautiful Tuesday morning. Good morning. Welcome to your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. A lot has happened in the last 24 hours. Of course, we're always here to help you make sense of it all. I am Bukola Cook, and of course, I'm not alone this morning. Hi, Jeffrey.
Good morning, Bukola, and welcome to the program. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. As always, we keep track of happenings in the polity, whether it's around you, above you, or under you. We do our best to catch up and highlight the most important conversations that people are having right on the street, on the pages of newspaper, and as well around your neighborhood. So welcome again to the program. Bukola, what are you tracking?
You know, sometimes we scrounge as journalists to report good news, and more often than not, in fact, 95 to 97% of the time, we do not have good news to report. But I am pleased this morning to note that patient at the Accident and Emergency Services from the Federal Medical Center, Abuja, who was not treated for a few hours, is set up and stabilized, and the patient has even been sent home. I'm not quite sure of that particular detail, but 8 medical staff, according to the Chief Medical Director, under investigation for that particular incident. And, you know, it just brings cause for reflection of everyone in the health sector and, you know, every single person in the society on the need for us to not lose our humanity, particularly those in the health sector. Maybe paramedics and nurses do not sign the Hippocratic Oath that medical doctors do sign, but I believe nurses also sign a similar oath at graduation. I believe it's called the Nightingale Oath, that compels them to be committed to the welfare, to the well-being, to the health of those patients that are under their care. And besides that, you know, it's been years down the line since the you know, promulgation of that act by, I believe, the 7th or the 8th National Assembly, that compels medical staff to treat you know, patients brought in, you know, with gunshot injury. And this is very, very critical, not just to the health sector. We understand the fear, the worry, perhaps, you know, the patient has been brought in from a crime scene, or the perhaps participators in the crime, or maybe, you know, they're just a few minutes or seconds to crossing over to the other side, and no one wants to bear responsibility. But what about that oath to saving human life? Why are medical workers still struggling, you know, to help to fully be participators, the key drivers of the implementation of that particular act? So we hope that the investigation, you know, yields result, and it serves as a deterrent in the future, you know, to other medical staff that find themselves in that particular situation, so that they will be able to rise to the occasion and treat patients and save lives, you know, rather than, you know, being participators of deaths that can be inevitable, that can be avoided.
At the end of the day, is just to do the right thing. One of the biggest problems Nigeria has is that there is no consequence for bad behavior at the very strict level where it should be, because somebody knows somebody that knows somebody. Most of the time when you see people get punished sometimes because they don't know somebody that knows somebody, it's not supposed to be our narrative. If you do something, you should face the consequence, whether it's stole federal government money, state government's money, local government money, or you fail in your duty as a medical practitioner in that sense. I know they also have their own narrative. I remember I was hearing about a gentleman, former colleague, a guy of mine where I used to work before, that died, and part of the reasons why they were tossing left and right, especially when the doctors see that this is a very, maybe there's no much hope about the situation, or whatever it is that they have concluded from where they sit that this may not be a good end, they begin to be dodgy in that sense, because I do not know whether they count how many people that the lives that have been lost through the hands of some of these doctors or some of these medical practitioners or some of these health institutions. But whatever it is, institutions that should regulate them, the government institutions that should regulate them, should do the best they can to ensure that people are held accountable. Regulations are there to shape people up, to put some level of control and humanity. I saw an accident somewhere where, of course, the bike driver was wrong, the rider was wrong, but it was cleared on the road, literally. And everybody was acting like, I mean, I saw it on the internet. Everybody was acting like nothing really happened. Nobody rushed to the scene to see, okay, maybe some moments of, intervention could save this life. So it's very sad when these things happen. You may not understand it until it comes close home. And it's something you never want to find yourself in when you need medical help and there can be medical help and nobody's coming to your aid. I think anybody who does that, an investigation show is negligence or rejection, whatever term is used, should just lose their license. And that way everybody will wake up. But all of the ancillary issues must be dealt with to make sure that everybody has what they need to be able to save their lives. Okay, but let's get to what we're doing for you, bringing to you on the program today. First up, let's talk about the state of our nation. It's almost 26 years, which is going to be, okay, it's actually 26 years, over 26 years since the democracies took off in the Fourth Republic. But, we shifted our Democracy Day to June 12 in remembrance of MK Abiola and everybody who was in that struggle. We've started the assessment of the performance of the presidency as well as the National Assembly. So today, those are the things we'll be looking at today on the program right here on the Morning Brief.
And that's not all, of course. We'll also be assessing, in addition to that, we'll be assessing the 10th National Assembly after 2 years of legislative business. So, of course, that will be coming through. There's also on the agenda today the Upstream Regulatory Commission clarifying why a new company won oil blocks in the 2024 oil blocks bid. So we're scrutinizing that process and asking questions about the rush in another report by oil companies to convert their licenses from prospecting to mining. So what does this all mean? How does this impact your own well-being as a Nigerian? Are you getting the gains of Nigeria's crude oil output? Will help you understand this thoroughly as possible.
I want to beg Nigerians, try as much as possible. It can be technical to understand what happens in the oil industry, but because this is our biggest earner in terms of foreign exchange, be interested. And of course, we'll talk to the Gates Foundation, the goalkeepers. They'll be right here to bring us up to speed as to, they had an event recently in Lagos, Nigeria. The drivers of that event, the Gates Foundation, the goalkeepers, will be here to bring us up to speed as to exactly what this means for the country, for the continent, and for the sector they are focusing on as far as the issue of the foundation is concerned. There are so many interventions that have come through, and we'll be looking at all of them today on the program. But hey, we have a big question for you, and our portals are all open for you as well. So let's get straight to that particular question of the day. Now, we told you that as part of our series of examining the performance of those who have handed over our Commonwealth or the National Assembly that should do tripartite responsibility of representation, legislation as well as oversight, we want to score them. It's the 10th National Assembly. 2 years down the line is going to be, I think they were inaugurated on the 13th or so. So the big question is, how would you assess the 10th National Assembly on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm going to ask that question again. And you should have your parameters. How would you assess the performance of the 10th National Assembly on the scale of 1 to 10? 10 means excellence, 1 and 0 is on the... So the question is going to scroll at some point on your screen. Okay, I understand. It's already up on your screen. So you will be responding to us via email, via WhatsApp, and hashtag CTV Morning Brief on our social media handle. So remember, the question is quite simple and straight. I know you have a lot on your mind to impute, but while you're speaking your grammar, just give us a scale. How would you assess their performance on a scale of 1 to 10? This 10th National Assembly, 10 being excellent, the lower cadre, you know exactly what it means. Okay.
And it's an important question,
It's
Jeffrey.
very important. Because
besides your assessment from a distance, do you also know your own representative, I mean for your federal constituency or your senatorial district? How have they performed in the last 2 years? Are they new, or they've been there at the National Assembly for their second term, or for more than a term or 2 terms? So what would your assessment be about how they have represented you well in terms of legislation and in terms of, you know, bringing development to your senatorial district and your federal constituency? If you didn't know your elected representative prior to this time, I think it's time for you to, you know, get on your devices and finding out who your representative is.
Well, besides taking it as your, you know, when you school they say barakbo. Besides the personal assessment of your representative, I want you to look at the National Assembly as a whole. So they have 3 responsibilities. So you scale them based on those 3 responsibilities. Responsibility number 1, representation. They represent different constituencies. Number 2, legislation. To pass laws, whether it's executive bill or their own bill. And number 3, oversight. To make sure they check on the executive to do their work. So having these 3 responsibilities at the back of your mind, how would you assess the entirety of the National Assembly led by the chairman of the National Assembly, Godswill Akpabio? Okay? All right, so we'll take a quick break and we'll bring you up to speed with what the dailies are saying. I'll be joined by public affairs analyst, a regular, to help us out on that part of the program. Join us again. All right, we're being joined in the program by Mr. Ifeta Adeni. He's a public affairs analyst joining us from our Abuja studios. Mr. Adeni, thank you so much for coming on the program. Let's get straight to business. To Absolutely. It's been a while. We've seen you. Let's get straight to business. And this Nigeria is where we're starting off from. Food security, FG policy crashing market prices. Food security, FG policy crashing market prices, says Minister. You know, the reason I'm happy about this headline is that I have Bukola here, who goes to the market. So she's my first, is this sample now? Samples? Anyway, Mr. Adeni, up to you now.
Crashing market prices, if there are policies that are being fed from our pocket. We know that we used to buy rice 80,000, 100,000, now is 50,000 or thereabout, or less than that. That's when we know that, oh, they've already crashed the market prices because of whatever things that we are feeling. But if it's not, if there's no difference with what is obtainable before, I don't see that. But anyway, crashing crashing market prices, it is when they liaise with the farmers, Association of Nigerian Farmers, you know, giving them what's it called, fertilizer, making sure their farm product, farm produce get to the market, you know, security, because of this issue of herdsmen and the farmers. If they are being resolved, there's no issue like that. So those are the things that can factor in to make sure that the prices of commodity you know, goes down. Of course, you know, some of our economy, they are, should I say, fuel dominated. Whatever affect, if there's increase in fuel, and it's going to affect the farmer that is bringing his farm produce, you know, to the market or to the urban area or to the city. So those are the area, and of course, they should also help them when it comes to fertilizer, tractor. So those are the things that can bring down the food there, that can crash down the prices in the market. But if these things are not in place, I'm sure we are just paying a lip, you know, service to when it comes to food security.
You know, Jeffrey, I'm going to be an only too willing survey respondent this morning. I bought a bag of rice just last week for 80,000 naira, and I can report that I bought a bag of rice, the same bag of rice, for 37,000 naira in 2023. So nothing has crashed. I'll just give you 2 more examples. An ideal 5-liter bottle or keg, if you like, as we're saying in this part of groundnut oil that is safe for your health is hovering between 19 and 20,000 naira. And just 4 or 5 months ago, the same bottle was bought for between 12 and 15,000 naira. So you can put 1 and 2 together about how much it cost in 2023. You can also talk about palm oil. An ideal 5-liter bottle is safe for your health again, because there are different variations in the market, is about 13,000 naira, and in 2011 it cost a lot less. So, Honorable Minister, no price of ideal staple has particularly crashed. They're still very, very...
I don't know, Mr. Fatah, not to take away the job we brought you to do, but it's just funny. Perhaps they're saying in very rural areas, I don't know, maybe that's what they refer to. But when I hear words like crash, from my level of, my little knowledge of how numbers and economics works, is a very strong term. Perhaps they should say drop in price. That would be a fair one. Maybe it went from 80
of course,
to 75,
same here, even what I've been paying.
Yeah, 90 to maybe drop in price. Because if I hear anything crash in the market, from what I know,
yes,
I'll be alarmed.
That means drastically reduced.
So perhaps maybe they wanted to say
what
drop
I've been paying
price.
as...
Go ahead.
Yeah, even what I've been paying at home, it kept on increasing. They will buy it 5 naira yesterday. Today, it will almost double. So there's no crash in price. I've not seen that.
Maybe they were speaking as politicians.
Well, we just wanted to update the Honorable Minister. Mr. Ifeta, let's go to the Blueprint newspaper. And for good reason, this morning, look at the front page. $5.12 billion Abacha loot. Let anyone prove my husband stole Nigeria's money. Of course, that came on the heels of the interview granted to, one of the broadcast stations just days ago. The wife of the former military leader, Sani Abacha, saying confidently that her husband did not steal, that in fact the money that her husband kept for Nigeria has disappeared. What are your thoughts on this, particularly against the backdrop of reports of Abacha loot returned to Nigeria under different administrations, with questions on accountability of how the monies have been spent? Either it's under former President Goodluck Jonathan, under former President Muhammadu Buhari. In fact, the Attorney General of the Federation under this government also signed with a government of one of the European countries on the return of Abacha loot just months ago. So what are your thoughts on this position held so confidently by a former First Lady, Mariam Abacha?
When you are talking about that your husband has not looted anything, there are so much evidence. And because I know the Western world, they are not so generous to just be dashing us the money. And about 3 years ago, the BBC, according to there's an infographic from BBC with the collaboration from federal government, from World Bank, and the money they recover from Abacha loot, from the family. And it got to the point that they said, look, we can't just be bringing this money. Tell us what you are going to use it for. And which about, I think, 3 successful governments, they benefited from the loot. So what evidence do you need? And we are saying another thing we should be discussing about, how are this money being judiciously used? What are the infrastructure that are being used? Are they commensurate with, we are talking about 5.1 billion loot. I remember there was a time I think the U.S. government that come and tell us what we want to use this money for. I have so much number here that can be read out. It showed that from the family alone in the 1998, $750 million was recovered. In year 2000, $64 million was recovered from Switzerland. In 2002, $1.2 billion was recovered from the family. In 2003, $160 million from Jersey, from Switzerland, and so much number. Even sometimes, on a lighter note, some comedian, they will say that we like the spirit of Abacha. We can just wake up, they said, so $1 million had been recovered, was returned, So those are the things. When you are saying, let anyone prove my husband stole Nigerians' money, we've been getting this thing from abroad. I'm sure they can't just gang up and say that we just want to pin it on his head. So it's just a lesson to our leaders. Whatever you do while you hold power, you'll be held accountable, you'll be remembered. So I think the question now should be, how have we used the funds that were recovered? The infrastructure, does it commensurate with this money? And so those are the questions that we should be asking for. The federal government should answer. There's no debate about whether he looted fund or not. Was he keeping it? Was it in our name? Was it in the name of Nigeria? So those are the things. So let's move on. What are this money being used for? Are they commensurate? Are they justified? Who knows? Maybe in the next few days we'll hear that another looted fund has been recovered.
All right, interesting. Let's go to the New Telegraph. New Telegraph is leading with something political. 2027, 22 PDP governors endorsed Jonathan, yet he lost woefully in 2015. That's coming from Alin Dume, the senator representing Borno South. He was on our sister program 2 days ago, and he talked about the fact that the endorsement that happened during the APC National Summit, he said he was there. He didn't know, he thought it was a summit, but when he now saw that it was an endorsement, he left. So when he was asked questions about what this means, well, he's been vocal, he's been very critical of his own government, and he's talked about it severally. So he said, look, endorsement means not inciting the experience of Jonathan. The writer says, since politicians decamping voters and Buratai town attack, not ex-army chief. All right, Mr. Fetayo.
Yes, you know, it's just that sometimes because of these, our leaders, they are being surrounded by mostly sycophants who will be praising them. You know, the people actually determine who governs them. Whether we've seen another, the real decamp will still happen maybe a few months to the election, not even now, when they need to dot the I's and cross the T's. So 22 governorship, you know, endorsing Jonathan then, and like he said, he lost woefully. Anything can happen. Like we said, election is a game of numbers, but as much as you can get to yourself. So it's people that determines. It's not just all about governor. A governor can only give you one vote. Of course, they said he has some structure, he has resources, you know, to mobilize. I think Nigeria, we are woke now, as we, let me use that time. So I remember the first time I voted, I casted my vote, I ran inside the house. The second time they said, wait, let your vote be counted before you go back. We did that. And, you know, the reorientation, wait, when they count the vote, make sure you follow it to the, what's it called? Is it local government from there to the senatorial district from there? So the awareness is getting more higher. So it's becoming difficult to rig election, whatever it is. But it's Nigerian people that will decide whether you have 22 governors, whether you have 5 governors. When the people are ready to do the right thing, the will of the people will prevail.
All right, Mr. Fetayo, let's head over to the Guardian newspaper now and take a look at some stories. The big story, 24 years later, 43 new operators target telcos underserved amid concerns. You know, and make no mistake about it, of course, there's been progress in the telecoms sector, but amid, you know, challenges in this new administration that has seen the increase in tariff for Nigerian users, but there are still areas that are underserved. If you go into the hinterland, there are places where you may not necessarily find network. But what is the potential for you know, internet connectivity and in fact return on investment for this you know, development?
Yeah, it's just a pity, just like, let me borrow, even when it comes to bank as well, we have some underserved community, underserved area. 24 years, we have the number, we have the market, and I think it's high time that the government, because we have the number, we have the market, they can create a kind of tariff, you know, bringing some of these, reduce their import duty so that they can, if you want to operate in this region, if you want to operate interland, if you want to operate in riverine area, I was privileged to go to one of a place in Delta State, and you'll be amazed that there's nothing called internet. Even if there's a place in Abuja that an individual went there to do a kind of CSR, they discovered that some people, they've not even cited GSM. Those are the things that there's nothing wrong. A state government, we said we want to provide internet coverage in all our domain, in all our states, so that anywhere you are, whether you're at home, whether you're in the city or in the urban area, those are the things that brings development. I think the 43 new operators to target, all the underserved and concerned increase and all of that. Every day they keep on increasing the tariff because of this, because of that. I think the role of government is to make life bearable for our citizens. So I'm not seeing our government doing that. Rather than we are paying through our nose. What you can use your salary to buy last month will not be enough for the increase that's going to happen this month. I think they should look at it critically. Yes, we've recorded huge successes. They provided job employment, direct and indirect employment, job creation and all of that. But we can do more so that our people can be empowered, so that our people can do so much from the comfort of their zone. They don't need to migrate to a certain place before they can connect to the rest of the world.
All right, before we leave the papers, Mr. Fetayo, let's take a look at one more story on the pages of the Guardian newspaper. I just seen 2 minutes. Wike's politics is always interesting and very intriguing to me. Wike rallies PDP stakeholders in Abuja high-stakes meeting. So I understand he had a meeting with some G5 governors, I think apart from Sheyi Makinde and some other persons, but lawmakers, including the embattled National Secretary of the party, Samuel Anyanwu, former Senate Minority Leader, Philip Adudua, and several other persons sitting, and ex-legislators, where he held that meeting and he's saying he's trying to save the PDP. It's quite difficult to define the man and his politics. What do you make of it?
It's just a pity that the leadership of PDP, they know what to do, whether they are afraid. I'm sure Wike is just, all due respect to him, play a waiting game. Keep them on the line. It's part of the politics. If you know that it's either you are here or you are there, let us know where you stand. The kind of politics he plays sometimes, it confuses Nigerians, and especially I think the PDP, they know what to do. If you want to get him out, if you want to get him in, just go all out and do this, and let's stop all this confusion here and there. We know so many things that he has said, and he has, chosen to pitch his tent, of course, to the Mr. President, which is APC government. I heard him yesterday saying that this governor has the camp. We don't know Rivers State, whether they are there or not there. Those are the things just, playing the, I won't say he's playing ghost, but if PDP know they want to, they actually want to come out very big and to make an impression, to make a statement, they should just seize him out. But of course, they know what to do. If they're afraid to do it, and then they will lick their wound.
Thank you so much. I'm just saying now that they call them the concerned PDP stakeholders. They made a few demands, zoning of the party presidential ticket to the south, and reaffirming of Sam Anyanwu as party secretary. I think that issue of the Sam Anyanwu, the Supreme Court has made a decision, and this presidential ticket to the south, we don't know whether it's southeast, southwest, I'm laughing. I was in the hall when I was covering as a reporter in Port Harcourt, where is it south-south now? I think it should be south-south, either south-south or the entire south, but I stand to be corrected. But I know that in that meeting, I was a reporter where they decided, towards the election, insisting that the presidency must come to the south. And it was surprising to everybody that one of the persons, in fact, the chairman of that forum, became the vice presidential candidate of somebody from the north. Oh boy, politics.
Politics sometimes, the more you look, the less you see.
I held that document for a long time. I don't know why I lost it. I would have read. Anyway, Mr. Adeni Fetayo, thank you so much. Public affairs analyst, for coming on the program. We appreciate you. Let's keep watching the polity, and may Nigeria survive. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, we'll take a break from the papers and we'll be back for our conversation. Join us again.
Welcome back. It's still the morning brief right here on Channels Television, and we're set to get right into our first conversation for the day. But before that, don't forget that the question of the day, the portals for you to answer the question of the day are still open. So what's it? How would you assess the 10th National Assembly on a scale of 1 to 10? How would you assess the performance of this 10th National Assembly on a scale of 1 to 10? Remember the parameters: representation, legislation, and oversight, holding the executive to account. So that's the question of the day. You can reach us via email, on WhatsApp, and of course on X using the hashtag CTV Morning Brief. All right, so that's settled. Time now to kickstart our first conversation. And of course, we're reflecting on the important issues shaping the polity, either it's be legislation, the assessment of the National Assembly after 2 years of legislative business. Remember that, they're also marking inauguration, I believe, on June the 10th. And of course, there are other issues as well, shaping the polity, the campaigns by the administration, ahead of the 2027 election, the door-to-door posters, seen across the nation, and so much more. So joining us on this particular segment, we have Mr. Rambi Ayala. Yes, Mr. Rambi Ayala is an APC chieftain, and he's also a former NNPP chairman in Gombe State. Thank you so much, Mr. Ayala. Okay, I'm told that Mr. Ayala is not there yet. We'll have Mr. Ayala as soon as possible. We also have joining us a spokesperson of the Arewa Consultative Forum, Mr. Professor Tukur Mohammed Baba, who'll be joining us shortly on the program. But, Jeffrey, there's so much to reflect on as we look at the state of the nation this morning. I'm wondering about the intentionality, with which the administration has commenced the campaign of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for re-election in 2027. Take a look at the posters. They're not, posters that will be put up by supporters, with any form of levity or with ease. This is, something that has to do with mobilization of resources, mobilization of time, and, a project embarked upon by, a political group. But we see that the administration has also distanced itself, from this and asked the supporters to stop putting up the posters. So I'm wondering, there's a disconnect between, the dissociation of the administration, by the presidency to be precise, from those posters, and the seriousness with which the supporters are carrying on, with putting up the posters.
For me, I think that there is nothing wrong with supporting anyone.
Absolutely.
Let's put that in context. There are people that admire the president. There are people that don't want to see him be president. So it's all, no matter who had won, it's the same, and especially this election was very keenly contested. As a matter of fact, there were more people that didn't want Bola Tinubu to be president. By the numbers, about 14 million when you had Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar and Rabiu Kwankwaso. If you put their numbers together, they came to about 13, 14 million people, as against Bola Tinubu's 8.7 million. So if it was a parliamentary system, he wouldn't have been president. But it's a presidential system. The laws are simple majority, and then 2/3 in all the distribution, 25% in 2/3 of the states of the federation. So there will always be people that will be overreaching, overbearing, overzealous in that sense, not making excuses for them. But where it is interesting is to the effect that It's not just about talking to say, oh, don't start campaigning. Well, you've stoked the fire. I don't know whether it is because of how the coalition, whether it's going to succeed or not, has been moving. So the APC had to do something quickly to stamp themselves, which is why. So when on one hand you're saying, oh, don't put out posters, it's not campaign season yet, but you endorsed him at your national summit. You're speaking from both sides of your mouth. Endorsement for a second term, you've already started campaign, you've already told everyone, let's be clear, 2 years ahead of the time, in case you want to run for president on the platform of the APC, maybe you have to check another party. So that in itself is campaigning in a way. And then another part is to the effect, I saw somebody sent me a video. I wish we could put out that video. I hope we can. Picture of, I think they call it door-to-door, something.
Absolutely.
For Bola Tinubu. It's simple. If you say they should not start all of this campaign and all of this move towards electioneering 2 years ahead of time, Minister Wike is very good at, getting things done. So they can just go and remove all those things. You don't need to announce to anyone. You don't need to tell them, don't do it. No, that would sound like hypocrisy. They are lined up on the lamppost, or what we call poles in Nigeria. You've seen them on the poles. And those poles belong to the federal government or the state government or the government in general. So just go there, remove it, and tell them, please don't do this again.
And we have the Lagos State Signage Agency,
I'm talking about the one I saw in Abuja.
I'm talking about the ones in Lagos. There are some in Lagos too. If you go on Third Mainland Bridge, you find, in fact, if you go on the island, you find some of these posters as well. So we have a Lagos State Signage Advertisement Agency, that can, be asked to move in and take down those posters. If indeed the presidency is serious about its statement that, it's not campaign season, this is not the right time to begin to campaign for the president, you can take out the posters. So let's see the position of the presidency backed up with action. But, just to reiterate that there is absolutely nothing wrong with expression of support for any government at all or any aspiration of any individual. But it's just, the appropriateness or the propriety of the deployment of campaign at this season. Is it distracting from governance? What are the real issues of governance, the real conversations, the debate about the economy that we should be having at this point in time? So that should be, what is dominating conversations, what should be on the front burner, at this point in time. Right. While we wait, to expand that conversation a little further, let's find out what you're saying about some of the big stories or the trends on social media. Jeffrey, you have the first one.
Yes, let's get to talk about some of the things that you've been talking about. And the biggest has to be with what Alin Dume said. Alin Dume was, we talked about, it was on one of the dailies, I think, a New Telegraph, it took it as a headline, where he was assessing the performance. So if you know Senator Alin Dume, he doesn't mind, no matter who's ox his God, he will speak his mind. So let's take a listen to him, what he said in that particular interview with our colleague, Shemo Kimbale.
Voice vote was, I was there for a summit. And when I realized that it was not a summit, and the voice vote was put about the endorsement of Mr. President, I just left. And that does not mean I'm not an APC member. Because Jonathan had 22 governors then endorsing him like we did now. And what happened? Jonathan lost woefully. And even that time, what happened? A lot of money was spent, over 2 billion or whatever. And then even the election was sifted. But we are not learning our lesson. And I pity Mr. President for this kind of a thing. Even though he came out one time that this is not time for campaign, we should not be campaigning. But you have already seen the problem now. You go out there and say you are endorsing Mr. President. And when the rumors came out that, oh, the National Assembly members also and this thing are going to be given automatic ticket, the party came out to say, we are not giving them automatic ticket. So who is going to be the foot soldier?
That's a very strong question he asked. Who is going to be the foot soldier? So, and I think that at this point, INEC has a responsibility to do the needful for any party that is adjudged to be campaigning. I think that's INEC's work, right, job, Babi? So if INEC adjudges some of these moves, because the way politics works, so when it's not campaign season, they don't use the word votes. They use the word support. They use all kinds of terms aside vote. Because if you use vote, INEC is going to come for your head. But INEC should learn that politicians have learned to fly.
Politicians have learned to beat the law, right?
Nigerian politics is interesting. It's very interesting. Anyway, they will not use the word votes, but they'll use every other word that references support for a person or a group of persons or a political party. So whether it's the APC, the PDP, or whatever. But the ones we have seen are mostly APC. So whatever, anybody INEC finds, APC, PDP, Labour, NMPP, and the remaining ones, go after them. That's your job as a people. But it's so sad that I personally, I don't feel happy, even if I cover politics, because controversy is good business sometimes. Anyway, but this is a time we should be holding government to account. We should talk security, governance issues around the economy, the debate about crashing or dropping of prices. There are so many things we can discuss, not whether Bola Tinubu has a chance or he doesn't have a chance, what is happening with Atiku or not.
Well, beyond, just to say that Senator Ali Ndume re-echoed the appropriateness of, campaign at this point in time. But beyond that, Senator Ali Ndume is a member of the All Progressives Congress, but he doesn't mince words, as you have said. You remember his kakistocrat comments, on another platform. But the criticism of the party from within, how the party will respond to this, and where exactly is its position as far as the All Progressives Congress is concerned. He disagrees with the policies, he disagrees with, the handlers of the office of the president. He talks about access to the president, but where exactly does he stand as far as 2027 is concerned, and as far as the APC government is concerned? I wonder how the party will respond in the long term to his continued criticism. But that's the beauty of democracy. Disagreements are allowed. If you disagree with the administration, what alternative debate are you offering, alternative views are you offering as far as how governance should be approached, how the economic policies should be implemented, what are the alternative ideas that you're offering? But it's good to see how this unfolds, and in the short term and in the long term, of course, we'll keep tabs with comments from Senator Ali Ndume. But there's more to come as far as what you're saying on videos from the front page is concerned.
Guests are ready for us now, so we'll get to the guests because I have them. Because we have a lot to talk about with the guests and the trends as well. So let's get to our very first conversation of the day, Bukola.
Yes, indeed. We have joining us now Professor Tukur Mohammed Baba, spokesperson of the Arewa Consultative Forum. Thankfully, Prof, we have you now. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
A very good morning to you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, sir. So the conversation is taking a life of its own already. We've begun talking about the surfacing of campaign posters across the country. They're in Abuja, they're in Lagos, and I believe in other parts of Nigeria as well. We're reflecting on the propriety of those posters, although they do not necessarily say vote, but should they be coming at this point in time, Prof?
It's disappointing. We thought there are more pressing issues than starting campaign posters all over. Now, of course, the supporters of the regime will say that, it's done without the permission, it's made by supporters, but it's still campaign posters. It's everywhere. They assault you in the streets, the billboards and everything. But we think there are more pressing issues. What will sell any party is not posters, it will be their performance in office. Or if they're coming for the first time, their promises and how people assess them. In general, I think the party should not try to play with the intelligence of the electorate, saying that, oh, we have not started the campaign, these are done by people on their own. No, it's not true. I mean, it doesn't make sense. There is definitely a campaign going on, and it's very serious. If you add other actions, that will tell you that, the campaign has started already in all but name and so on. Nobody is foolish.
What should be the role of the Independent National Electoral Commission at this point in time? Are there blurry lines between, what is being done now and what should not be done when it's not campaign season?
Well, there is definitely a role for the Electoral Commission, but of course it depends on how the campaign is being mounted. It's easy to deny that, no, we have not formally declared a campaign. We just talked about statements of intention, declaration of support by supporters, and so on. But let's face it, it is a campaign in full swing, and it shows a party desperate desperate for propaganda, desperate for communication, so that the issue at hand is confused with what needs to be done. Rather, it is what the party intends to do. We take our eyes off governance. We take our eyes off performance, and we are now putting it on intentions to campaign, and that's all. And it's very unfortunate.
All right. Mr. Rambi Ayala has since joined us. He's a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress and former chairman of the New Nigeria People's Party in Gombe State. Mr. Ayala, thank you so much for joining us on the program. I'm sure you've been listening to the thoughts of Professor Tukur Muhammad Baba, who says that the intensity of the campaigns now, both in action and in words of your party, shows desperation. How do you respond?
Well, thank you, Ms. Bukola, and thank you, Jeffrey. We are glad to be here and having a democracy that is working under the able leadership of Mr. President, who has been a thoroughbred statesman and somebody that has worked tirelessly for the development of our democracy in Nigeria. I mean, I think naturally what is happening today is out of sheer excitement of Nigerians that democracy has come to stay, democracy is thriving, democracy is moving as it should. And then the APC as a government building on this so far late. Mr. President is carving a new niche. He's trying to deepen steady the country, steady our democracy, steady the economy, as the case might be. So for me, of course, naturally, not only in Nigeria, globally, I mean, the first 2 years is 2 years of governance. And once this governance, as we could see, Mr. President came and hit the ground running, accepting the fact that he has inherited both liability and assets, and then trying to ensure that the promises he has made so far during the campaign is brought to fore, and he is doing exactly what he has promised that he would do to ensure that our economy is steady, which reflects on day one when, of course, during the campaign, each of the presidential candidates did make commitment that we need to move up. We need to really put our country on the trajectory of development by ensuring that subsidy is removed and market forces come to play. Given the fact that oil is the mainstay of our economy, and then begin to diversify the economy, which is exactly what Mr. President is doing. Also giving the necessary thriving environment for private sectors, just as we've seen recently, the Dangote conglomerate have been given the opportunity to be able to do some of the things they are doing in order to deepen our economy and in order to ensure that as a country, we are getting it right. So talking about the excitement, this is not out of maybe out of concern or out of fear that maybe the APC is not doing the appropriate thing as far as the country is concerned. Naturally, like I did mention, that in a country such as Nigeria, and then take it beyond the shores of Nigeria, I mean, after 2 years of, in a democratic setting, after 2 years, naturally you begin to see the political aspect of democracy beginning to come into play. And then we begin to also prepare for another round of election. By the way, naturally, immediately after any first round of election, another round of election, preparation begins, preparation commences. And so for me, and then there's nothing that is new that is happening. And come to think of it, is it maybe which of the political parties will APC be concerned that that maybe that we cannot get it right when it comes to election? Is it the PDP that is totally in disarray, which is going into total, which they are contending with democracy? I mean, and they try to blame it on the APC sometimes, which is an internal problem they have failed to manage. But for the APC, under the leadership of Mr. President, the party is very steady. The country as a whole is, we are getting it right based on global ranking. I mean, some of the indices that we are seeing as far as our country is concerned. So I think taking it from that level, APC as a political party under the leadership of Mr. President, I mean, as a country also, you would agree with me that we are getting it right.
All right. So the question everybody seems to ask, since we cover a lot of politics, we understand how this dynamics works. But one of the things we're trying to do is to sieve out all of the noise and bring a bit of substance to the conversation. Nigeria is so much in this. We've been in dire strait for a very long time. We're trying to fix our country. All political parties are saying we have the answer. Right now, APC is at the helm of affairs saying these are the answers we're providing. And so, from where you sit, shouldn't we be focusing on the answers that APC is providing rather than get immersed in the politics as it is going on right now? Because literally everywhere you turn, what are the kinds of questions that are being asked? Because every time people seek power, to get power, to grab power, whatever word is being used, is to say, we have alternative ideas to the economic problem you're facing, the political problem you're facing, the security problem you're facing, and the list is on. And so this is supposed to be time for interrogation for us. So from where you sit, even as a citizen of Nigeria, beyond being a party man, shouldn't we be focusing on performance right now than on campaigning?
Well, Mr. Geoffrey, like I did mention, that only recently Mr. President was in Lagos, and I guess he's still in Lagos before even the break, the Salah break. He asked actually some of the plans, roads are being, serious infrastructures are being awarded by this government. There's nothing that has stopped as far as the APC government under Mr. President is concerned. Day in, day out, he is focused, the blueprint that Mr. President came on board with it. He is unfolding it and he's following it tenaciously, and things are, we're getting it right. I mean, the indices, like I did mention, there may be some pains for us to get it right. And I think these are some of the pains that maybe successive administrations have been trying to avoid. But Mr. President has taken the bold step to take us through so that at least we can now see the harmonization of the forex windows, among other issues that has been brought to the fore, bringing also the tax reform, new tax reform. Of course, naturally you would agree with me that before now, hitherto the tax that we have in the tax laws that we are having over time is something that we've been operating under a very obsolete tax regime. And then Mr. President is trying to bring it in sync with modern trend, in sync with modern reality. These are governance issues that not a day passes that the APC government has not really done what it ought to be. And to be frank, I am speaking from the Northeast. You would also agree with me that the security issues, yes, like not only in Nigeria, these are issues that we face globally. Every country has its own fair share of security issues. But you would agree with me that today, I mean, from day one, when Mr. President came into power, there has been a drastic reduction in some of the challenges security-wise. Yeah, one is not saying that maybe we still don't have some of these security challenges. How about the economy? The economy, yes, we may be going through some of these pains, like I did mention, but hey, certainly we will get it right. I mean, given the pace at which Mr. President is going and the consistency in some of these well thought out have been churned out for as Nigerians. Well, you will always have politicians who would also not want to major on the real issues. They would always want to distract and maybe begin to, instead of, for instance, security issues is one issue that nobody should play politics with it. I mean, over time, sometimes people try to play politics with security, and it's one issue that should be at the front burner, whether you are in APC, PDP, Labour, whichever party. We have a country to steady. We have a country to contribute towards ensuring that we live.
My apologies. Let's also allow Prof come into the conversation. Prof, so as you can hear, Ms. Ayala, this is a consistent conversation. The people in government have always had said, if you look at some of the economic fundamentals, I'm using my words carefully, some of the economic fundamentals, they are in the right direction. So I can tell you for a fact, one thing the government has to be praised for is the debt service to revenue. However, it was reduced from 90-something to about 60 or 40%. That's a great one. Our excess, our foreign reserve has also increased, but we're still fighting issues around. And then, of course, the issue of the FAC allocation, the federation, the one they share across the different tiers of government, from federal to state to local government, it has increased exponentially in terms of, in Naira terms. So sometimes it gets as much as 1.7 trillion, 1.8 trillion. So these are some of the gains they have said that pushes money into the system. But on the flip side, we have issues around high interest rate, high inflation, high unemployment, lived-in experience. We're still waiting for the NBS to release the National Living Standards Survey, which will exactly show us the quality of lives of Nigeria. Our GDP per capita is very low. So there are positive and negative sides of all the impact of the reform. But the truth is that the compounding effect has not gotten here yet. So when they put out this narrative to you, Prof, how do you respond?
Like you earlier said, it's all about noise, noise, noise. And that's one. At the end of the day, all these figures, all these claims will make meaning only if you relate it to the standard of life of the ordinary Nigerians. And let's face it, it's been going down and down and down. According to the IMF, the level of Nigerians living below the poverty line will rise to about 143 million at the end of 2025. That is saying more than one half of the Nigerian population will be living in poverty. So all these claims about foreign exchange, about liberalizing the business environment does not make any meaning. We also know that many businesses have left Nigeria. I have seen online some claims about 7 million businesses closing down. Cost of living is very, very high. Cost of facilities, electricity, that is power, and so on. Power generation is down. I mean, all these claims, and then, of course, if you notice, all the claims are suffused with Mr. President, his high, unprecedented emergence. All this, you know, we are building a cult of personality. We are talking as if we are dealing with an emperor, and people are supposed to be happy and grateful to God for his gift. Look, at the end of the day, how has the standard of living of the Nigerian improved? Of course, you talk of improvement in security. Where is it? Let's see it on ground. Boko Haram is making a resurgence in the northeast. In the northwest, banditry has devastated communities. In the north central, we still have clashes, and they're expanding. New groups are emerging. I mean, the security forces are doing as well as they can, but we're saying it's not nearly enough. We need different strategies, because at the end of the day, people are still feeling insecure, and they are insecure. So let's forget about the personality cult we are trying to paint. Let me give you an example with the 2025 budget, for example. Just as an example of how governance is being abandoned in favor of propaganda. okay? There are several, I have read online, several provisions for the provision of street light. Each one 266 million naira to be provided. Come on, a street light, 266 million each. I mean, it's incredible. Look at I've seen an analysis of the budget further. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has proposed 300 million for support to IDPs in the Northeast. What happens to the Northeast Development Commission and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? You go to the office of the SGF, there is a provision of 150 million for the supply of furniture to palaces of royal fathers. I mean, for God's sake, let's stop playing politics with each other. Let's stop the head in the sun strategy. You hide your face and so on. This economy is not doing well. No matter what the propaganda is, at the end of the day, you and I, has our standard of living improved? Access to education, access to health care. So we have to be honest with ourselves. By denying that there are problems, we'll never get to the solution.
All right. Prof, let's put your criticism of the administration in proper context and, by weighing it with the position of the ACF under the former administration. The reports are available to show that, in fact, the ACF disagreed with the Northern Elders Forum on the decision to back former President Muhammadu Buhari for a second term. The Northern Elders Forum had, complained bitterly that the former president didn't solve the issues of poverty and underdevelopment in the north, and had in fact wasted 6 months at the beginning of his first term in constituting a cabinet. But the ACF nonetheless disagreed with the Northern Elders Forum and went on, to back former president for a second term. So by that, some would say that the ACF is inconsistent, with its criticism of administrations in terms of real issues of development. And this may, in fact, be born out of the fact that the current administration is led by a Southerner. How do you respond?
Let me make a correction. The ACF has never come out to support any presidential candidate or party. Let me repeat. What you are saying is contrary to my records. It is not in ACF tradition to support any party openly. Rather, we concentrate on politics. I don't know where you got your data, but that is different from what I have. On the other hand, ACF has stayed neutral by analyzing issues and presenting it. Maybe it's another northern organization you are talking of, not the ACF. Certainly, it's a consultative forum.
But here's a report. There's a report here by Mr. Abdullahi of the ACF, perhaps not under your own service as spokesperson of the forum. But you can go ahead with your answer.
I'm not aware. I have not seen your report. I cannot refute it. But to the best of my knowledge, I can't think of any Abdullahi who did that on behalf of ACF. What I know is consistently and steadfastly, ACF refused to endorse any candidate. Again, please check to make sure it is ACF. There are so many northern-based organizations, but I can assure you ACF has not, and I had never and will not openly support any candidate or party directly. No. In fact, during the build-up to the 2023 elections, the ACF invited all the major contenders. Some came, others refused to come. And of course, I think it was a different northern organization that came out in support of one of the candidates, but please, not the ACF. I would very much like to see your report and assess it. But in fact, again, I have looked at the history of the ACF. I don't know of any Abdullahi. Of course, people can speak and say they're speaking as members of ACF, but that doesn't mean they are. That's the official position of the ACF. Again, I insist, ACF has never come out to support the former president. On the other hand, in fact, the former president had a very, very clear disdain for the ACF and did everything he could to keep a distance away from the ACF.
All right.
Again, please check your thoughts very well.
All right. Well, of course, it's an ongoing conversation, and perhaps you would want to also scour through reports of the media to find that indeed there's such reports to that effect. But let's come to Mr. Ayala now and get your last words on this particular conversation. Specifically now, the continuing, endorsements and alliances, with the All Progressives Congress. And we've seen, a latest move, by another chieftain of the PDP, who was a former critic of the administration, who now is aligning with the policies of the government and, in fact, making a case for Mr. President. If you watched our sister program yesterday, you would see, comments made by a chieftain of the PDP, Mr. Segun Showumi. And he, in fact, referred to the possibility of having been invited to the villa to meet with the president during the Salah celebration. Now, does this prove, by any chance, reports and suggestions that the administration is coercing members of the opposition party to its side in form of alignments with the 2027 ahead of the 2027 general election? Honorable Ayala.
Well, I think from day one, the economic policy and all of the things the president has promised to deliver on, he has just been doing just that. And Mr. Geoffrey just reeled out the benefit, the dividend, how we've been, our foreign reserve is going high, and then, of course, we are top on security. The president is top on infrastructure. He's giving the necessary leverage, enabling environment for private sectors to thrive. And then today, we don't have fuel queues and all that. Now, what more of a testimony, what more do we need as Nigerians? I mean, any Nigerian that is interested in making the country to work, since Mr. President is doing exactly what he ought to do in order to ensure that we are making progress. I mean, naturally, people who love this country will not just be in the armchair, will just perpetually be critics.
All right. We must thank you, gentlemen. We're running out of time already, but we've had Mr. Rambi Ayala, APC chieftain in Gombe State and former chairman of the New Nigeria People's Party, Gombe State. We've also had on this segment Professor Tukur Mohammed Baba, a spokesperson of the Arewa Consultative Forum. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time on the program.
Yes, if we call it casually, Mr. President is...
All right. Pardon me, Mr. Ayala. Of course, we'll definitely have more time in the future to continue this critical conversation. We'll take a break now. When we return, it'll be time to look at developments in the oil sector. Stay with us for this. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Let's talk about the oil sector, especially the upstream sector of that particular very important sector of the Nigerian economy. The reason is quite simple, and why some of us are particularly interested is that, at least for now, the oil sector is our biggest FX earner. Maybe tomorrow things can happen. The internal economy, our economy is diversified. If you look at our GDP, you look at agriculture, look at telco services, and the list is long. So the contributors, as a matter of fact, the oil sector contributes just about 5%, maximum of 6%, because of no added value. We just send crude and oil and send it out of the country. But with the backward integration, there is hope for the future if everything is consolidated eventually. But as we speak right now, oil and gas, or oil itself, is our biggest FX earner, contributing to about maybe in the neighborhood of 80%. So there's a lot to be done. So that's why what happens in that sector should be of importance to you and I. Now, a few days ago, a couple of things happened around the bidding process for some blocks. And, well, a company, we understand, that was just registered less than 2 weeks or very short time before that got the deal. And that aroused a lot of curiosity. And also, some of the licenses that were granted, now it's called PPL, it used to be OPL. It's now PML. It used to be OML because of the Petroleum Industry Act. Some will be expiring in June, on June 27th. So will some of them be extended? Will they be relinquished? What is the level of work that has been done from their development plan, they call it, FDC, and all of that. So we want to look at all of these technical things and what it means to you. That's why we brought in the expert, Mr. Olabode Shomi, joining us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Shomi, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
Mr. Shomi, so let's start with that very controversial one. I want to get back to how one of the dailies put it. It said, why new firm won oil blocks in 2024 round? Because this was the explainer that was given by, I understand, Komolafe, the head of NUPROC, to the effect that the new firm in itself, the promoters are experienced people. Because people were saying, what does the law say about people winning this bid in that sense? And if a company is relatively new, we understand they're just a few days old or so, they were incorporated, how come they won? That raised a lot of questions. So these were his responses. But you are a player in that space, because people are saying something is fishy here. Is this nepotism? What exactly is going on? Help us out here.
Okay, so, you know, in times like this, you just have to follow the letter of the law. So there's a reason why there's a requirement that companies are registered. There have even companies that are not even registered have even been known to win businesses. So technically, as long as they have not violated any tenets of the law, they have qualified in terms of the technical qualifications for the job. I don't think there should be basis for questioning. But having said that, there is a tendency, and it's typically a Nigerian tendency really, that for somebody to win a certain amount of business, he must have 50 years experience, he must have this, he must have that. It's just culture, really. So we need to put that aside. So except somebody has evidence that something fundamentally wrong has happened, it's just what has happened. And people should also know that what matters is not the age of the company. What matters is the experience, the capacity, and the proactiveness of the people, the human resources that are inside the company. That's what matters. So if the people that are in the new company are competent, if they are able, and if they are able to attract investment, why not? They should be the one to win it.
So, Mr. Shomi, are you saying that we should be looking at the competence of the promoters beyond what the track record of the incorporated entity has done? Which is more important? Because we have to be careful here. We're talking about oil blocks. Perhaps the promoters may be well-intended, fantastic gentlemen or ladies who have experience and decided to come together. But for the purpose of building confidence in a sector that we've had a very poor level of investment, I'm happy that places like Bonga and all of them are coming back, and some of the things we are seeing in that sector, so that we can ramp up production. Are you saying that year of incorporation, to be able to track the incorporated entity's performance, is not important? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, so let me give you this example. I think it was in 2001. KPMG International withdrew the license of KPMG from what was KPMG back then. And they pushed that license onto what was Anderson, and they named the company KPMG Professional Services. Guess what happened? All the international companies that were typical KPMG clients, they moved away. That company had the same track record, the J.K. Rando team, they had been there since probably 1960. But because the human resources that were the essence of that company had moved out, those who had trust in the company also moved out. It's probably the same thing here. The Channels TV is a nice organization, it has a big building, but if every single person here, including the owner, should move out, people are not going to do services with you because of the building and because of the registration in CAC. It is people that people do business with. And if there is confidence in the human resources, then there is every reason to engage them.
All right. For the other part of the story, which is a rush by about 40 companies identified as converting their licenses from prospecting to mining. Help us understand this. What is the difference between a prospecting license and a mining license, and why this particular rush?
Okay, so first of all, when the operation starts, you're not giving a mining license, you're giving a prospecting license, primarily because throughout the history of petroleum, irrespective of what the study says, that is geological studies, people have been known to dig the well and actually not find oil. Sometimes in the olden days, before gas was such a big deal, people would dig wells and they'll find gas. And gas used to be a nuisance back then, but that's no longer the case. So what happens is that once you are given a license, you're expected to prospect, to dig. And at the moment when you find oil of commercial quantity, that license will now be turned into a mining license. That's when the people will now be obligated to pay taxes, where there will be different monitoring, pumps will come into the place to monitor. So it's just that there's a set of changes that happen with respect to the operations in that mining field. That's why there's a need to change it from a prospecting license to a mining license. It's a technical regulatory issue.
Okay, so I understand that from the PPL it goes so let's so that we're clear, because I read a couple of comments. People will not be familiar with this, so walk us through what the law says. From what I've read within the laws, it says that for PPLs, as we call it right here, prospecting licenses for the safe forward now, the licenses are given for 3 years with a possible extension of 2 years, while if we strike oil and all of that, it given for 20 years and all of that. So walk us through what the chances are within this 40 set of firms that were given these licenses. I understand the licenses were given, I think, 2022 or 2020, I can't remember the exact, but 3 years ago. So it expires this June, and in the next 2 years, if it's extended, it's going to expire yet again. What has been found so far? What are we looking at as possibilities from the PLs right now?
Okay, so I've not really studied, and I'm not aware of the data in terms of the activities of the prospecting for the rest. I mean, for the respective 20 licenses, so to speak. I'm aware of one or two of them who someone engaged me at some point, and I know that they found some amount of oil. But the main issue, from the knowledge available, the information available to me, is that there has been significant challenge raising capital. You must realize that oil prospecting is not the kind of money, the money used for it is not the kind of money you take from your back pocket or from your savings account. It is money, significant money, which is going to come from outside our own banking system. And for various reasons, which is different from each particular case, some of them have not been able to raise that kind of capital to do the work. It needs to be understood that when it comes to prospecting, it is just that money will just be poured in. They just keep pouring money in, investing money until they strike the oil. And typically, there are cases where they don't actually strike oil. So the investor who is going to invest in a prospector has to have a risk appetite, and the person also has to have a risk appetite for the Nigerian environment. So there are issues, by and large, where some of them have not gotten the funds, and that I understand could be the reasons why they've not been able to move from a prospecting license to a full mining license.
Yeah, Mr. Shomi, so doesn't that raise a few questions as to, I know that in the 90s when the indigenous companies were brought in, entry threshold was reduced so that we can have some of these local companies bid for these licenses, and they have technical partners coming in. So the ones that were done in the rounds around 2023 or 2022 or so, what was investigated as to their capacity before these licenses were given to them? I want to assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that they had paid some signature bonuses in that sense, and they demonstrated a bit of capacity with a healthy risk appetite to be able to carry on. So is it that it wasn't well done that 3 years after we're having this situation, or is something that is common?
No, it's nothing as per the qualification of the firms in any way. Like I said, each particular firm has peculiar reasons why. It could be that maybe the people who were bringing in the funds wanted some amount of stocks in it, and the people refused. Or I mean, there are multiple reasons. It has nothing to do with their capacity to attract funds. It is more of the individual company's circumstance and the peculiar requirements of the people that they are talking to. It has nothing to do with the nation, has nothing to do with the oil, has nothing. It's just peculiar issues between people, and those are normal things in business. So, but it's incumbent on the people how much they are willing to give away, amount of risk they are willing to take. So, those are judgment calls. Those are decisions that entrepreneurs make for themselves. And in a free market, you can't really force people to make decisions they don't want to make. So that's why the regulations are there. So if within that time frame they are not able to call their appetite in check, they are not able to caution their greed, then the law will take its effect. So people should be allowed to do what they feel is best for them.
All right. So, Mr. Shomi, there are about 40 of them, and that suggests that there's a lot of activity in the oil sector, even though some may not have actually begun the actual mining. But payments have been made for licensing, and in fact, the NNPCL, according to reports, is signing deals with IOCs for exploration. So there's a lot of activity in that segment. How does this all, that sector rather, how does this all translate into increased crude oil output and, in fact, revenue for the country?
No, it's simple. It's if once they get to the position that they start mining, there is greater crude oil. I mean, they are going to mine crude oil anyway. So once they mine it, they are going to sell it. Once they sell it, that's revenue directly or indirectly for the country, depending on the terms of their license. And revenue for the country means increase in GDP. It means more vendors. I mean, they are going to, I mean, for just sake of logic, they are going to have vendors who are going to supply food to the people that are working on the rigs. There's going to be health services. There's going to be accommodation around those areas. There'll be recreational activities, golf, all those kind of things. There's going to be health. There's going to be vendors who do janitorial services. All of those people are going to pay, and all of those people are going to be, and all of those are going to contribute to the economy. So, with respect to income, for direct income through the treasury, it's all dependent on the terms that they have. Do they have a JV? Is it a production sharing contract? Whatever terms that they have is going to determine the amount that comes directly into the treasury. But let us make no mistake about it. Even if there's no amount of money that goes directly into the treasury, that is increase in prosperity for the nation, increase in the GDP for the nation as well, and the local community, whichever way is going to benefit from the activities, from those oil activities. And more importantly, along with the drilling of each oil is gas. Gas is the future for the nation. We don't have enough gas, and we keep having increment in people demanding gas from us. Recently, when we went to South Africa, a deal was signed in gas between Nigeria and South Africa. I'm not sure we're able to meet those needs at the moment. That's why South Africa has to go to the US to go and sign another deal on gas. It doesn't take too much logic for you to know that gas from Nigeria will be cheaper than gas from the US. So there are reasons why all those things are not met. So we need to produce more gas. We need to meet our domestic needs. We need to also meet the needs of others that want gas from us, from the EU to other African countries. So whatever activities is happening, irrespective of whether there is direct income into government coffers or not, is good news for Nigeria, whichever way.
All right, Mr. Shomi, so in just about 1.5 minutes, if you could help us do this. Recently, the president has signed an EO, executive order. They call it the Upstream Petroleum Operation Cost Efficiency Incentive, capping tax credits about 20%. But one of the things I've looked at, I've been looking extensively at that particular executive order, and I hope that there's no move to regularize it into the PIA yet because of some of the shortfalls that may be identified. But if you're familiar with that executive order, one of the things I want to ask you, because there have been remarks as to the effect that our accounting framework in terms of hydrocarbon is not efficient enough for us to be able to know what comes to surface. in terms of our wellheads and all of that. So we depend on all of these agencies to give numbers. Comparison has been made to people like Saudi Aramco, where both the regulators, the government, and the players in the space all know what comes out space. I know production costs in Nigeria is quite expensive, depending on the maturity of that particular site. So for you, what has to be done beyond some of these EOs to make sure that Nigeria is not cheated on one hand because of this cost efficiency we're looking at, on the other hand, to be sure that also the incentives are right and not affecting us negatively? Because we can give these incentives to say we're attracting investment and losing money if there's no transparency in the space.
Okay, so a few things. First of all, it's not exactly true that we don't know how much we pump. It is manual, it is not automated. So at each wellhead, there are people that are there, the representatives of the NUPRC, representatives of people from custom. There are government functionaries that are there. The only thing is that it's not automated like you have in Aramco. That's on one side. On the other side, with respect to the activities for accounting and transparency, accounting in the oil sector is as good as accounting anywhere else. The difference is just the system in terms of the people who are there and how much there's space for the proper transparency, and that is an issue between whether the audit firm and the respective firm that are doing it. That has nothing really to do with Nigeria as a whole. It's just a case of imperfections that may exist within any system, and it does exist within systems. I think at the end of the day, when you look at all those incentives that have been put in, the whole idea is that when you put in any incentive, it's for people to be motivated to work. I think it was Shell or Chevron, I can't remember exactly which now, one of the two made a post at the end of their year, and they said that the amount that they've contributed in Nigeria in terms of taxes is the highest of any of the operation in the world. That is not an incentive. In as much as we feel that they should do this and we may actually be growing into a sense of entitlement, it is also important that we balance it so that these people who are reputed to have brought in a few billions can also bring in more and help us develop the economy into what we want it to be. Because at the end of the day, there is a lot more, like you said in the opening, that the oil industry can give. Aberdeen doesn't produce too much oil, but they have human resource capacity development, training. That is almost everybody in Nigeria, if they have not been to Aberdeen, they've been to Houston. We can also have places in Nigeria that can develop capacity building in these areas and that can serve the rest of Africa. There are 1,000,001 things that are directly or indirectly related to oil and gas that we can develop capacity, serve other people, serve the rest of Africa, which for now we have the greatest capacity in terms of oil and gas. So, yeah, incentives are necessary.
Yeah, I totally agree that incentives are necessary given their significance, but automation is critical because that's the only way we can cut out the corruption and lack of transparency. Because there's complicity on all sides if we want to tell ourselves the truth. And one of the ways to check that complicity in terms of the corrupt practices or we're being cheated is for us to just have a dashboard automated that we can see all of these things. I don't think it's too much to ask. Mr. Alabade Shomi,
I agree with you 100%.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We appreciate you, sir.
Pleasure is all mine.
All right, to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk to the people from the Gates Foundation. They call them the goalkeepers. But don't forget our question for the day. We're going to read your responses towards the end of the program. And the question is straightforward and simple. Based on the parameter of oversight, legislation, and representation, how would you assess the performance of the 10th National Assembly on a scale of 1 to 10? Join us in just a moment for the next conversation. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the program, and on this particular segment we're going to be coming up close with the strides of the Gates Foundation in Nigeria. Of course, I'm sure that you've been acquainted with, the visit of the tech billionaire Bill Gates to Nigeria in recent times. He's been to Nigeria a bit more frequently, and of course you also know that he was conferred with a national honor by Mr. President. And in different fora, he has emphasized, that's the tech billionaire, that Nigeria is the biggest recipient of its intervention funds in Africa, and Nigeria is critical to plays a critical role to its efforts to address global health inequalities. So, and that's backed up that with action by making Nigeria its destination for the very first time of the Goalkeepers event. So let's come up close with the high points of the Goalkeepers events that was just held in the country, in Lagos, the commercial capital, to be precise. And joining us on this segment, we have the country director for Gates Foundation, Mr. Uche Amonwu. I hope I got your name correctly, sir. Good morning, Mr. Yes. Amonwu.
Good morning, Bukola.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for
having me. So let's start right away. What informed the choice of the hosting of the Goalkeepers event in Nigeria for the first time?
Yes, so thank you. The Goalkeepers event was established by the foundation to do two things, right? One is to really amplify the progress that the world is making towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And the second is to focus on the change makers that are driving that progress. So that's what it's always been. The choice of Nigeria was very intentional. If you think about it, Nigeria has the largest youth population in Africa and a growing innovation ecosystem. So it's really a way for us to localize some of the conversations that are happening at a global level within Nigeria, to be able to highlight the Nigeria-led solutions that are being implemented by our people to be able to drive some of this progress, and also to bring really, the concept that development has to be done closest to the people who you're trying to impact. So, that's the reason we decided to bring this to Nigeria.
Brilliant. So for those who are wondering, they're looking at the regularity of Bill Gates' visit to Nigeria in recent times and the commitment of those billions of dollars into development in Nigeria. How is it affecting me? How do I benefit from it? For those who are looking at it from that standpoint, how is the Gates Foundation creating hubs for youth development to drive inclusion, representation, participation, such that those funds can improve the lot of the youth for those locally driven solutions, either it's in tech or it's in healthcare?
Yeah, so Goalkeepers is one of the platforms for us to do that. If you think about it, this is where we actually try to profile young innovators and social entrepreneurs who are making real change, right, in the sectors we care about: health, agriculture, gender equality, education. And we give them that platform to tell their stories, right? So that's really the essence of the Goalkeepers function. And we believe by amplifying these local voices, you're doing two things, right? You're building momentum, current momentum around some of those innovations that are driving, to make sure that, people hear more about it and can actually feel inspired to be able to take it forward. And the second thing is that you're connecting those young leaders, right, to a global audience where they can have access to resources, networks, both locally and globally, to be able to scale the innovations that they're driving. So it's forums like this that I think are going to be critical to make sure that some of these innovations aren't hidden. They're actually made very public, and people are aware that they're happening. And that's the way you actually create a movement of change for people to take those and move them forward.
Well, you may think it's not hidden, but some may not know how to get on board the Goalkeepers community. We'll get to that subsequently. But let's manage our time now. In the short term or in the long term, what are your projections about the impact of the Goalkeepers event on those hubs that have been created for participation, for inclusion in the sectors that are important to the foundation, be it tech or healthcare?
Yeah. So in the short term, it's really about awareness, right, and visibility, and providing the opportunity for collaboration for some of these young innovators. So that's the short-term goal about it, just to make these things visible so people can see it and support it. In the long term, you know, in development, we use the term capacity building a lot, but there's the other side of institutional capacity, which is individual capacity, right? Are we able to build a movement of local change makers who can influence policy, right, shift narratives, and actually help accelerate Nigeria's progress towards these goals, right? So that's actually another way of building this capacity in people versus institutions. Both things are important, but I think the goalkeepers focuses more on the people, and can we actually create an army of people who are really doing great things and can do it at an accelerated pace for Nigerians.
So can you share some tangibles, some key successes, identifiable impacts of the foundation's investments in Nigeria?
Yeah, so over the years in Nigeria, the foundation has supported programs in health, agriculture, financial inclusion, and education that have reached millions of Nigerians. For example, if you take our work in health, we've supported work around routine immunization and primary healthcare systems that have contributed to reducing Nigeria's burden of diseases for things like polio, malaria, and other infectious diseases. You know, today we are currently backing efforts by Nigerians to really bring down the high rates of maternal and child mortality in Nigeria through investments that are focused on scaling the adoption of, you know, low-cost but high-impact solutions that actually address the root causes of why mothers die at childbirth and why children don't survive past the age of 1 or 2 years, right? So these are investments that Foundation has invested in developing, and we are bringing some of this to support the government of Nigeria and its efforts to be able to combat some of these diseases. You know, if you look at the work we do outside of the health space, in agricultural productivity, where we're trying to combat food insecurity and nutrition insecurity, right? A lot of people don't know that nutrition is actually one of the biggest, or malnutrition is one of the biggest challenges we face in the neural development of the child's brain. So if children are chronically malnourished for a long time, then it actually impacts their ability to be successful in life. So we focus again on innovations that prevent malnutrition from happening. And some of these have to happen through the food systems, what people eat on a day-to-day basis, and what they plant in their farms. If you think about...
okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I just want to point out one more piece around education, which is another area where we focused on. And this one, we focused on what we call foundational literacy and numeracy. So that's making sure that by the time a child gets to primary 5, they actually know how to read and write, right? Because we've understood that building this foundation is fundamental to the ability of a child to be able to be successful in higher grades in class. So the foundation chooses to focus on that level to make sure that we're able to set the child up for success. So that's just a few areas.
All right, and I believe that there are more. But let's look at the nitty-gritty now. What role does innovation play for positioning in the developmental strides of the Gates Foundation in Nigeria? And relatedly, as a young person who is watching you and wanting to be a beneficiary of the Gates Foundation investment strides in Nigeria, how do they position themselves, and what areas of innovation should they deploy their talent and energies to that can make them benefit from the Gates Foundation investment in the country?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Innovation and technology, because of our origins, right? Innovation and technology are central to our DNA at the Gates Foundation. We've invested in, innovations in digital ID, for example, or payment systems that actually, if done right, they're able to expand access to financial services to, people who would otherwise not be included in the banking system. We also have, we're making investments in strengthening health data systems and surveillance. platforms that will help us detect the next pandemic before it hits us, right? So things like this, and more recently when Bill was here, for those that followed, we actually entered into a landmark agreement to establish Nigeria's first artificial intelligence scaling hub. And the focus of the hub is really to help accelerate, the adoption of use cases for artificial intelligence that will help reduce or improve the delivery of key services in health, in education, and agriculture. So, so really in everything we do, it starts with innovation and how can we use technology to help us leapfrog things. Now, for the, Nigeria has a vibrant youth innovation ecosystem, and the interesting thing about them is you actually don't have to prod them, right, to be, prolific in their innovation. So they're out there innovating, they're out there doing their things. So I'd say just keep doing that. And when we have the opportunity to be able to engage with some of our platforms, like the Goalkeepers platform that we do, or directly reach out to the Nigeria country office to talk about the innovations you have, we are looking for an opportunity to be able to get those young people, understand what they do, and connect them to resources that can actually help them do this better. So, we are committed as a foundation to make sure that those innovations are surfaced, through the platforms that we have, but also through informal means of just having, folks reach out to us. So, young people, please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to hear from you and try and connect you to opportunities to accelerate what you do every day.
So it's that simple. Just reach out to the Nigeria country office of the Gates Foundation, and they can get the necessary help that they need.
Correct.
All right. As we coast home now, in what ways, and this is important, in what ways has the Gates Foundation adapted its strategies and response to its development efforts in Nigeria to sort of feel the global shocks emanating from recent funding cuts from the U.S. government? Is the Gates Foundation helping to fill any of those funding gaps for non-governmental organizations and their development work in the country?
Yeah, because that's probably the most popular question that I get asked. The reality is that, the withdrawal of, development countries and their monies supporting development work, has been very, very, very large, right? If you think about USAID, for example, they have a total budget of about $60 billion that is spent on development a year, right, across the world. And now all those funds are gone. At its best, at its highest spending, the Gates Foundation only has about a $9 billion budget. So even if we tried, we'll not be able to fill that gap, and that's the reality about it. But, but what are we doing to be able to help address that, right? So we are, in our portfolio of work, we are prioritizing down to the innovations and interventions that actually get us the best bang for our buck. So low-cost innovations with high impact, and making sure we are focused on those ones, because that way we're making judicious use of our funding. We're also looking at the way we run our investments, right? Where the opportunities for us to back local implementing partners versus the implementing partners to the global north that tend to, cost a little bit more. We want to be able to do that, right? We're also making sure that, we are still finding other co-travelers who are still invested in the fight to be able to drive development. And when we find them, we try and invite them to be able to co-invest with us. And this could be government partners, this could be other philanthropies that are emerging, this could be high net worth individuals that are looking at what's happening and want to do more. We welcome that, those co-travelers to be able to support us in this effort. And finally, it's one thing to raise money, but it's another thing to be able to make sure those funds are used effectively. So we are also building mechanisms in our programming to make sure that every single naira that we are raising in this difficult time is not being squandered, right? It's being used effectively to be able to save lives and provide economic opportunity for the people that we care about. So those are the things that we are doing currently.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, sir. And you know, you have our full support as you continue in your developmental strides in Nigeria. Thank you so much. We've been talking with Mr. Uche Amonwu, Nigeria Country Director for the Gates Foundation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Bukola.
And there's more to come on the program. We have just time enough to take some of your responses to our question of the day. And we've been, you know, finding a little bit of time to read them backstage, and they're quite interesting. Right. Jeffrey has the first one. All right, so let's remind you what the questions are again. The question actually is the 10th National Assembly, 2 years down the line, how would you assess their performance on a scale of 1 to 10 using the parameters of representation, legislation, and oversight? How would you assess the performance of this 10th National Assembly using the parameters of legislation, representation, and oversight? So it's in 2 years down the line since, okay, almost 2 years, because they were inaugurated, I think, June the 13th. So let's get to the first set of comments. We told you to give numbers on a scale, but some of you sent in comments and numbers. Wonderful. Let's see. Comrade Lolulon from Makurdi. Emmanuel Bakari. No, that's not it. I think this is from Comrade Lolulon from Makurdi. The 10th Assembly, in my assessment, will score, wow, minus 0.005 over 10. Or is it minus? I'm confused about this kind of score. From all fronts, I tell you why. Aside maximally rubber stamping the executive arm of government, their insatiable quest for primitive accumulating of wealth and insensitivity to the plight of Nigeria is on a scale that has never been experienced in this nation. They represent the dark side of the failed nation. Okay, these are some of the allegations you leveled against them. Let's say everything you say is an allegation, but is your view, and we respect it. That's why we ask for your view. Bukola, you have the next one. Yes, this one is from Engineer Yemi Enilolobo, who says, this 10th Assembly is best personally assessed as a department of the executive arm of government in terms of qualitative legislation and oversight duties. The impacts are not felt generally. You didn't give us your score. We said on the scale of 1 to 10. So maybe you can send in your score. Let's go to the next one. Suni, he said, my assessment of the 10th National Assembly, representation 1, lawmaking 0.5, oversight 1.5. Wow, this is really... So that's 2.5 over 10. This is not nice. Well, let's go to the next one. Engineer John says, scale of 1 to 10, my mark is 6 out of 10. They haven't done badly, actually. We all want them to be confrontational with the executive, but that's extreme. At least somebody has seen something positive. I was just praying something. All right, this is Ajuma. This one went straight to rating without reasons. Representation 1, legislation 1, oversight 0. And from Martins, we have this one. They are not representing anyone but themselves. Oversighting nothing but themselves. On a scale, it's 0. This is Farouk Gideon Samuel. Good morning, Channels TV, and good morning, Nigerians. On a scale of 10, I will rate or assess them with 3. The 10th National Assembly happens to be most redundant, insensitive, and rubber stamp assembly in the history of Nigeria's democracy. That's Farouk Gideon, right? This one is from Joseph Godwin from Jos, Plateau State. And Joseph says, I will rate the 10th National Assembly 3 over 10. This is because they were so easy to give in to the president's demand all the time. A critical example was the swiftness in changing the national anthem. They are more concerned with the presidency than the people who elected them to office. There are no active engagements except in attacking their fellow colleagues whenever sensitive issues were raised. That's from Joseph. The things I'm seeing here. So this is a feedback to the National Assembly. This is the perception of the people, and it's important you take this seriously. Dio says the performance, and let's say this for the people that send the feedback, because Nigeria is 200 million people. The performance of the 10th National Assembly of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is 1.
even the one is not for performance, but for entertainment, that they entertain us daily basis and their drama. So my answer is 1. This is very...
And I like this one from Jeffrey. I like this one from Odolu from Ebiloma. And Odolu is saying, I am from Igala, Mela in Kogi State. My community did not feel any representation, no light, no water in Egbada. So the lawmakers representing this particular area, either at the House of Reps level or the Senate level, should look into this. This is feedback, unscripted, unedited rather, from our side, feedback from your own representatives. So
for the record, the National Assembly is not supposed to build anything for you. It's just, the director will say, they are supposed to influence projects
into your communities.
And don't forget, it's part of their representation
that
duty.
There are, those are contained, I believe, in the constituency projects that should be attracted into
besides what the government does, you know. And I think this is coming from Ayeni Gabriel, says, I rate the 10th National Assembly a 2/10. When a legislative arm becomes an extension of the executive, it signals a clear failure. The very essence of its purpose to provide checks, balances, and independent oversight is completely undermined. What else is left to evaluate when the foundation role of the legislator is compromised from the start? Okay, so let me just read your last stage. I only give them 2% because they still exist as symbolic representatives of democracy, even though in practice true democratic principles are absent. Okay.
All right. We must thank you so much.
All right, the scorecard. All right, so that's the responses we got from you guys. The National Assembly Citizen Scorecard.
So we have the poor 70%, average 4 to 7, 15%, excellent 8 to 10. We have 5 respondents. I must thank you so much for responses.
Bukola, it's not percent. Those are the number of responses. So 70 persons gave them 0 to 3 as their scorecard over 10. 15%, 15 people gave them 4 to 7 as their scorecard. And excellent was given, that's 8 to 10, by just 5 persons. So that is this scorecard as far as your performance based on the number, the sample size, we call it in statistics, is concerned. We'll keep doing this so that more people can. We'll do for the executive, we'll do for as many things that we can come up with so that you get to see how people perceive you and do something about it. Thank you for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Bye-bye.
Of course, we'll be back again tomorrow. And Sunrise Daily is up next. I am Bukola Koka. Bye for now.